and insights that can improve our health and wellness. We come to you live on the fourth Sunday of every month from 2 to 3 p.m. We are also streaming online at WURDradio.com. Please call in at 215-634-8065 or toll free at 1-866-361-0900 with questions for me or today's guest on the multi-layered topic we're going to discuss today of gun violence, the community impact, and its impact on mental health. Today we have the pleasure of hosting three extraordinary women who are all involved in the powerful documentary Trigger, which is a documentary centered not only around the problem of gun violence in Philadelphia, but also the stories, resilience, and hope of community members. Before I bring my guests on, I want to highlight the fact that September is Suicide Awareness Month. And a recent report published, well, I guess not that recent anymore, published in November of 2021 by the CDC showed that although the overall rate of suicide in the United States decreased by 3% in 2020, the rate of suicide actually increased in the Black community between 2011 and 2020. Another fact, the suicide rate among Black men was 3 times higher than that of Black women. So although this is a program primarily focused on the health and well-being of women, those men in our lives, we want to make sure that we're aware of this issue, since this problem is, really impactful or really a significant issue amongst Black men. And equally alarming, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health found that suicide was the second leading cause of death among Black people ages 15 to 24 in 2019. And from 2018 to 2021, the racial group that saw the largest increase in suicides among young people, these are people aged 10 to 24 years old, were Black individuals with an increase of 37%. So these are statistics, but I don't want these to remain as statistics or just empty numbers, because this show is about the well-being of women, and these numbers represent lives. They represent our sisters' children or significant others or siblings that are dying at these astronomical rates. So, just putting it another way, when we think about adolescents, that's teens and young adults, suicide, the second leading cause of death among Black people. That's just horrendous. And, just seeing that increase by more than a third in suicide rates among people that young, it really, makes us step back to try to problem solve about what is happening with our young people. And we know that one factor that has been shown to be related to youth suicide is something called ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences. And these are things like domestic violence, financial hardship, losing a parent, witnessing violence. And there have been published articles that talk about 5 factors that may increase the risk of suicidality, or this rate of suicidality amongst Black Americans. One probably isn't a surprise to a lot of people: social media usage. There's also the existing stigma and myths around mental health in the Black community and seeking help for mental health. That is part of the reason for the amount of untreated mental illness, or when people even want to seek help, there's often lack of access to mental health services. And this is something, I have experienced even for people who have health insurance or who are willing to pay out of pocket. It's often not easy to get access to those mental health services. There's also things that are systemic issues that are difficult for any one of us to address, such as exposure to racism and anti-Blackness. And then there is the issue of the day: continued exposure to violent crime, violence, and just an accumulation of traumatic experiences. So we're going to get into this discussion more with our guests. and, really emphasize that last piece, the exposure to violence. Witnessing violence and residing in neighborhoods plagued by an increased incidence of violent crimes adds another layer of trauma that can exacerbate these rates of self-harm. And, you might even look at the perpetration of these crimes as a form of self-harm. That, especially when you're talking about young people, having this exposure to violence can have real deep-seated detrimental psychological, emotional, and physical effects on a child's development. And what's even more alarming is that children exposed to violence may be at a higher risk of substance abuse. I don't know if I should say more alarming, but it's equally alarming that children exposed to violence may be at a higher risk of substance abuse, in encountering challenges in their educational journey, developing conditions like depression and other mental health issues, displaying aggressive behavior, and engaging in criminal activities into adulthood. This cascade of consequences underscores the urgent need for us to address the issue of violence in Black communities comprehensively. So that is what brings us to today's Speak On It segment, Trigger Voices and Healing Stories. We'll hear from three amazing women who were involved in a production of Trigger, Lives Connected by Loss and Violence, and a search for hope with a vengeance. Trigger is a first-person arts film that is a powerful call to action about the role each of us can play in combating the gun violence epidemic in Philadelphia and beyond. For those of us who might not be familiar with the documentary, it includes a father telling his story about how he lost his son literally in front of his eyes, a trauma nurse from Temple, a high school principal, community activists, doctors, scholars, shooters, victims, and their families all share their stories, revealing layers and layers of hurt that extend beyond the individual, beyond the family and first responders, to the entire community in need of healing. And yet they each search for hope with a vengeance. These storytellers are committed to using their horrific experiences to help others. So this is what we're going to be getting into today. You are tuned in to the Her Health Matters radio show with me, your host, Dr. Sofia Shabazz, on WURD Radio, 900 AM and 96.1 FM, and we're discussing the powerful documentary Trigger, exploring the impact of gun violence in Philadelphia. Please give us a call at 215-634-8065 or toll free at 866-361-0900. You can also leave your responses on our Facebook page at Community Hero PA. Please call in, let us know, in your opinion, how can we better support the mental well-being of young people facing challenges in today's world? That's the question that I'm putting on the table, and we hope to hear from you. Today's guest is, we have several guests. They include Yolanda Hughes, Director of Network of Neighbors at DBHIDS, Rosalyn Pichardo, the founder of Operation Save Our City, Jamie Brunson, the Executive Director of First Person Arts. So we're going to go around the virtual table and learn a little bit about our guests. First, we have Yolanda Hughes, the Director of Network of Neighbors. Welcome, Yolanda. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Can you please share a little bit about yourself and the Department of Behavioral Health, Intellectual Disability Services? I believe that's what DBHIDS stands for.
Sure. My name is Yolanda Hughes, and I am the Director of the Network of Neighbors. And the Network of Neighbors is a trauma response network. And that concept is fairly new to just our city as well as throughout the country. And as a trauma response network, we help facilitate conversations with any community that has been impacted by any traumatic experience. So as a trauma response network, we focus on what the community deems to be traumatic for them. We don't necessarily focus on the incident. And that's important because when we're only looking at the incident, we forget about that trauma has ripples. It can impact one particular community, and then it can impact another community across our city or school or another particular block. So when we focus on the impact, it places the community in the driver's seat to allow them to get their needs addressed and things of that nature. So we have been
That's such an important point, that it's not just about the incident.
Yeah. And we've been in existence for 2016, and we support various type of traumatic experiences throughout the city. Gun violence is one that we're seeing a lot. But if you also think about the neighbor who may have died on the block from natural causes, someone who was involved in an accident, people are impacted every day by various situations. So we tend to always focus on the impact of what that experience is.
Thank you for that introduction and background. Next, we want to welcome Jamie Brunson. Jamie, are you there? And can you introduce yourself to the Her Health Matters family and tell us more about First Person Arts?
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning, or this afternoon, rather.
It's been gloomy all day. It's hard to tell the difference.
I know, but it's a good day to cuddle. You need someone to cuddle with.
Or a cat or something. I don't know.
Mine's a terrier.
Thank you. Can you tell us more about yourself in First Person Arts?
Sure. I'm Jamie J. Please call me that. I'm the Executive Director of First Person Arts. And basically, we are Philadelphia's storytelling organization. So we help people, artists and also people that don't consider themselves to be artists, to develop and share their stories. And we are the platform for them to share their stories, as well as the coaches that help them do that. And we pride ourselves in getting our finger on the pulse of what's most important to be talked about, what needs to be shared, and then using true personal stories to catalyze communities and dialogue that will connect us, that will foster appreciation among us for our unique and shared experiences. So for 8 years, we've had the great privilege of partnering with the City of Philadelphia Department of Behavioral Health on an initiative called Engaging Males of Color. And 8 years ago, then Commissioner Arthur Evans tasked me or charged me with working collaboratively to create a way to use storytelling to help destigmatize conversations about wellness and get people, especially males of color and the people that love them, access to services. So every year we created storytelling activities around what was important, and it was a no-brainer that gun violence was going to be critical. And we needed to gather together people that could talk about that and their experiences, how it impacted them, but more importantly, how they've chosen to use those experiences to bring hope, help, and healing to others.
That is amazing. And, what you said is so true, because telling a story can really, reach people in an emotional way and a very real way, so much more than any amount of statistics or data really could. We're humans, and we're just hardwired to connect with one another and with those stories. So thank you. Finally, we have Rosalyn Pichardo, the founder of Operation Save Our City. Rosalyn, would you please join us? Thank you. Rosalyn, tell us about yourself and the mission of Operation Save Our City.
So my name is Rosalyn Pichardo, founder of Operation Save Our City, and I started Operation Save Our City in 2012 after the homicide of my brother Alexander Martinez. And the mission is simply to meet people where they are and provide services that are not in place to help families of homicide victims and families who have loved ones suffering from substance use disorder.
Well, may God be pleased with your brother, and while that trauma is something that never goes away, I am glad that you've been able to, I guess, transmute or transform that into something that is of so much value in the community. Yolanda, as the director of the Network of Neighbors at the Department of Behavioral Health, you started to talk about the initiative, the EMOC initiative, and how it aims to improve the mental health and wellness of men of color in Philadelphia. Can you, tell us more about that?
Sure. So I could speak a little bit on EMOC, Engaging Men of Color. It provides a platform for men of color to share their stories. And we usually host those conversations centered around an overall theme. So these discussions allow men to get together, to talk with each other in a space that doesn't always happen, to talk about their impact, share their story without judgment, and to also bring a sense of connection and unity amongst the conversation. Because a lot of times when people are going through different experiences and different situations, especially when they are traumatic, we tend to keep those stories to ourselves. And we also tend to think that sometimes we are the only ones having that experience or having those particular reactions. So having these conversations creates a sense of connection, because if you think about it, when we experience something, there's always a natural tendency to isolate, right? And when we isolate, we just really stay to ourselves, and I always say that sometimes we're suffering in silence. So when you have these conversations in a safe space, when people feel emotionally safe and physically safe, it creates a sense of connection, and it can start a healing process.
That's amazing. What would you say, have you had an experience like that where, you've gotten, feedback from some of the participants in terms of, what it meant to them or how it resonated with them?
Sure. So we facilitate, in the Network of Neighbors, we facilitate conversations with ages 9 years and older who have experienced anything traumatic for them. And what happens before we even have those conversations is we are working in a very intentional way to ensure that people who are in the space feel safe and connected with each other, and they have had a similar experience to whatever has occurred, right? So that happens before the conversation, and that's important because if you're in a space, if you're in a group where you don't know the person or someone has not had a similar experience, it can make you feel uneasy. So when we have the conversation, the first thing that we hear people say all the time is, I did not know that someone else was having these similar reactions. I really thought it was just me. Right. They also have a sense of feeling safe and connected because they're having similar reactions. The other thing that comes up in a lot of the themes that we have, which is very important, is that a lot of times people have guilt about whatever has happened. They have a sense of feeling guilty. I didn't do enough. Or maybe if I would have called that person before they were shot, maybe they would not have been shot. Right? And those are heavy things that people kind of carry around. And having those conversations for people to talk about it, you can see the weight being lifted from their body. You can see how their body becomes more relaxed because they're having an opportunity to talk about it instead of carrying it around. And we know when we carry things around, we react in certain ways that may not always be healthy.
Right.
You know, what I find to be really exciting about this Engaging Males of Color initiative is that there is breathing space within the initiative for women. Women in their own right, and for women who love males of color. You know, there are those of us that have been impacted by gun violence, and we are paralyzed by it. And then there are those of us that have managed to press down those emotions, press down that trauma in order to survive, in order to thrive, in order to, you know, achieve some kind of level of success and happiness in our lives. And sometimes what I've experienced when we go out and do this work with our documentary film is that I'm hearing people, women and men, say, you can push it down for but so long.
Right.
And then one day you're sitting in your beautiful home, looking out on your beautiful family, and something inside you bends and breaks because the trauma is still there.
Right.
So what's beautiful about this initiative is that it has space for healing for everyone.
Right. Right. While we're talking, you know, while you're Jamie Jake, while we're on you, can you dive a little bit more and give us some insight into the documentary Trigger and how it came about?
Yes. So again, you know, every year we sit around the table about EMOC and ask ourselves what's the most pressing issue, and gun violence was it. And we set about this process of identifying people in the community with a very special set of circumstances where they had been impacted, but like Rosalyn have found a way to channel that trauma into some positive energy that not only has the ability to move Rosalyn forward, but also an entire community forward. And we found these incredible people and literally gave them a microphone. And Glenn Holston was our director. And, you know, I have to give a shout out to Dr. Joe Bowen, who is the now commissioner, who has been behind this 150%. So we found these individuals, we put them, you know, we coach them, we put a microphone in front of them and let them tell us their stories. And we have been taking this film out across the Philadelphia region and beyond in communities. And when we take it, it's not just a screening. We watch the film together, but there are wellness experts in the room. So if you need help immediately, there's someone there. If you want to get help later, you walk away with resources. And it's really an innovative way that the arts can partner with wellness to bring healing into people in a different way. Because I'm not a clinical therapist. I can hug you.
Right.
I can put my hand on you, right?
Right.
I can do that. And that's kind of what First Person Arts does. We create that safe space. And there's so much synergy between what we do to get people to open up and what therapists do. So it's a natural partnership.
And I was thinking as you were talking about the name of the documentary being Trigger, which, you know, it's, I guess in one way you might think about people pulling the trigger, but then it can become a trigger, and then people are triggered when, you know, they experience different things. And it could be a very similar experience, or it could be one component of that experience that inexplicably triggers a whole, you know, rush of emotions that cause people to react in ways that can be unpredictable. So again, this is such an engaging conversation, and one that is just so important. We're on WURD Radio at 900 AM and 96.1 FM. You're listening to the Her Health Matters radio show with me, your host, Dr. Sofia Shabazz. We definitely want to hear from you. You can call at 215-634-8065 or toll free 866-361-0900. Leave your responses on our Facebook page and tell us, in your opinion, how can we better support the mental well-being of young people facing challenges in today's world? Rosalyn, your organization, Operation Save Our City, plays a crucial role in addressing gun violence. Would you share some of your experiences and the stories you've encountered while working on this issue?
So early on, I've experienced gun violence my entire life. So I'm a survivor of an attempted homicide, but also my boyfriend, Talbert Jackson, to murder. And then years to follow. That was in 1994. And then in 2001, my identical twin sister, Kathleen Pichardo, who suffered from some mental health and substance use disorder, ultimately was released from a mental health facility, was able to purchase a firearm, and she ultimately took her life. So gun violence has really, really run rampant in my life and in my community. Then losing my brother, 11 years later. And then what people don't talk about is the ripple effect and what that does. A year after the murder of my brother, my dad, who was overwhelmed with grief, would say, I want to go to sleep and not wake up. And he would constantly say this over and over until he met his demise. He literally went to sleep and didn't wake up. So I think for me, creating a platform, not only for myself to heal, but also for families and sisters who had nowhere to go, and trying to find answers on talking to homicide detectives, and what does waiting in the ER look like for families who have loved ones in the OR suffering from a gunshot wound. So creating platforms and connecting with services so that they know what to expect for the next couple of hours or for the next couple of days or for the next couple of years. What does that look like? And for me, my lived experience has taught me to share and share in a healthy way. I like to share about my loved ones, but I don't always want to share about how they died all the time, but I also share about how they lived. So that's how I use Operation Save Our City as well, on remembering folks and honoring people. So it's not so much about how folks died, but also about how they lived as well.
Right. So from your perspective, how can community-based organizations and individuals contribute to reducing gun violence and the ripple effects, like its impact, as you mentioned, on mental health? And maybe it's not just mental health, but on a number of different things. And as like a follow-up question to that, like what resources and support would you recommend that people seek out for those that are affected by gun violence?
Really finding out where the core problems are. Where is that corner in your community? Where are those corners in your communities that are causing havoc? Make yourself known there. Make a presence there and offer things that may be a solution. Most dealers don't want to be out there. I mean, most of the time they may have been arrested before and have a criminal background. Let's offer some solutions. Offer some places who are hiring folks that have a background. And if we can't do that, and there's nothing for them in that aspect, because I can't literally get every guy who's selling or every woman who's selling on a corner a job. But what I can do, I can keep you alive long enough so that I'm training folks, one, on how to administer Narcan, how to stop the bleed. I'm giving them life skills to stay alive, but I'm also teaching them that there's other ways of life by directing them to places who are hiring. Again, having them tough conversations with folks, especially, and as an interrupter and a crisis responder, I'm living in both these aspects of life, of interrupting something before it happens, but also responding to it when it does happen. Mm-hmm. So, and I go right back to the same dealer, you just lost your boy up the street to murder. And I know what your thought is because I hear it. You want retaliation, but then now we're faced with another mother who's going to experience that same pain that your friend's mom experienced. So do we want to continue with this vicious cycle? Keep having these tough conversations with folks, and again, meeting people exactly where they are. And I think that, I wish I had a bigger platform where I can offer jobs, but I can offer a conversation, some solutions, and I can steer them the right direction, but I can't make it go.
Right. But what I'm hearing and what you're saying, a part of it is that, maybe as any one organization or any one individual may not be able to address all of the various aspects. You can't offer everyone a job, but you can do something. And I think many times as just members of the community, we feel powerless to do anything about it. And what you're saying is that you're not powerless. You don't have to have the total solution in order to make a difference. So thank you for that, because that came through loud and clear for me.
Can I add something?
Oh, sure. I was just about to come back to you. Go ahead.
I also think there is the component of all of the things that Rosalyn talked about, which are super important as well. And I also like to add some things that people can do to take care of themselves, like personally, right? Because everything that's happening in our city, even people who are out doing this work, including myself, including Roz, we have to do some things to take care of ourselves so that we can continue to do the work, and so that we can continue to not get overwhelmed by what's happening in our city. So I offer some practical things that are super important, so practical that people think they're simple, but they are very helpful. The first thing is, as much as possible, I encourage people to increase their water intake. And the reason that's important, because the more stress and trauma we take in, our body gets dehydrated, and we need to hydrate our body. So as much as people can, I encourage them to increase their water intake when they're feeling overwhelmed. So the more water you drink, the more you'll go to the bathroom, and the more you're flushing out those toxins that are causing some reactions in your body. The second thing is breathing. Our breathing becomes very labored when we're under stress. And I always tell the story of my colleague who was having chest pain, and she thought she was having a heart attack. But what was happening is she was actually holding her breath throughout the day, and she didn't realize it. So I'm encouraging people to practice breathing exercises. And what's important about breathing exercises is when you inhale, make sure your exhale is longer. So if you breathe in for 2, you should breathe out for the count of 4. And the last thing, which is important, is social supports. Like, you can't do this work or go through whatever's happening in our city by yourself. And your social supports can be a person, place, or thing. It doesn't always have to be a person, because that's what we think about. But maybe it's you go to a certain place. Maybe it's prayer. It could be meditation. It could be friends. It could be even watching that funny movie that has no plot that makes you laugh, right? And I encourage people to do that, because when you laugh, you're giving the body a break so the body can begin to relax. So those are some practical ways people can kind of take care of themselves through all of this.
I attest to or co-sign on that mind-body connection. So many times I see it. I'm a primary care physician, and I see it so many times where, people have 1,000,001 physical complaints, and I'm like, listen, they go hand in hand. I can't even address all of these physical complaints if we don't deal with the emotional side of things, and the same is true on the other side. If you're not taking care of your body and you're trying to heal, from a mental health, emotional health standpoint, it really can slow down or halt your progress if you're not doing both. So yeah, that's real. I don't think a lot of people realize that. So, one of the things because I actually went and tried to pull up the documentary film to see if there was a place to, purchase it online or view it or something like that. So, Jamie, how can individuals and organizations leverage this art of storytelling like you have done with both this project and others to raise awareness about gun violence and mental health challenges? How can people see the documentary, and how can listeners get involved in supporting First Person Art's mission?
Well, I thank you for that, Dr. Shabazz, and I want to say a couple of things. We purposely have not done a rollout campaign to make the film accessible yet.
Okay.
Because we want to combine viewing the film with the talkback that happens afterwards and the access to services. We're going to release it along with resources. And that will happen in 2024. Also, the film will air on WHYY, and we are screening it right on October 12th. I'm sorry, on October 3rd with the Story Fest, and I see the WURD is a sponsor of that. So we are so grateful to be in partnership with WURD on October 3rd. We're in Germantown at Braid Mill on 441 High Street. So you can come out to the Story Fest and see the screening. You can also go on our website, www, they told me don't say the www, first, F-I-R-S-T, person, P-E-R-S-O-N, arts, ARTS.org. And on our website is a form that you can fill out to request a screening. And we will come out to you. We will screen the film or excerpts of the film that are theme-based. So if you just want to talk about losing a loved one and how to resolve that, we can do that. We'll do a talk back where we'll turn the microphone over to the audience so that people can tell their stories and connect, and we will provide resources. So that can be gleaned on our website, firstpersonarts.org. I want to also say, please forgive me, Yolanda, for speaking for you, but Network for Neighbors, many times we go into communities where some gun violence has just happened, and the entire community is in that screening room with us grieving. And Network for Neighbors is a tremendous resource that Yolanda runs, but they won't come in unless invited, which is the beauty of it. And I want to encourage people, to find out more about Network for Neighbors as a follow-up to when we come in, or without us, if you need that help, coming in and talking to people and helping neighborhoods get through these things as a community is key. Dr. Shabazz, can I just go back to one other thing too, and I'm going to be quick about it. We talk about safe care, self-care rather. We talk about self-care. As a woman who's been impacted by gun violence, my father murdered my mother. And I was a child, and that passion, has driven me in this work. But as a person living with the trauma of violence and the ripple effects, I oftentimes pushed my own emotions down so that I could get through the day and do what I needed to do. And everybody's shaking their head understanding that. And something that I have to learn is not just self-care, but self-trust. To rebuild that trust within myself that, okay, when my breathing starts to get elevated, when I begin to feel anxious, my shoulders start to tingle, to build that trust within myself that says, I will stop. I will listen to my body. I will have some water. And I think when we think about self-care, we have to think equally about rebuilding self-trust to get us through.
That's really, you were going to say something. I couldn't tell whether that was Yolanda or Rosalyn.
Yeah, I'm just going to chime in. When we talk about self-care and we talk about the jobs that we do, when I previously worked at Temple University Emergency Room as a trauma advocate, and I did it for about 4 years, and even that, living through that vicarious trauma and living through that it's tough. And I think that we definitely need to listen to ourselves, listen to our bodies when it speaks to us, when it gives us these emotions, or when it gives us these sicknesses that we don't need. When it gives things, it is time to graciously exit. Once you cannot deal with, once you stop connecting with folks, or you become so used to a certain situation, it is time to disconnect, rebuild, and reconnect. I think it's so important for people to listen to what their mind, bodies, and souls are saying to them, because we can't help anyone else if we're not in a place where we can provide 100% of our experience and our training if we're not right. So I think, you know, me, when I worked at University Hospital, I definitely made full circles, because that's where my brother went to. He was murdered. And, you know, we didn't have any services. We waited for 10 hours with no update. But being there to be able to say to families, here's the update. It was full circle for me. It was a humbling experience. It was an experience that I would never forget. But then after a while, when you're seeing young men take their last breath, that is traumatic. So, you know, graciously stepped back, but I can say that we need to listen to our minds and our bodies and our spirits.
I want to say thank you to you, to all of you who are doing this work. And, you know, the fact that you did it for however amount of time and you know, transformed to maybe, you know, making an impact in a slightly different way. Nothing that doesn't in any way diminish the power of the work that you're doing. And I think a lot of people really carry that, where you feel guilty when you're starting to be negatively impacted, and you feel like, oh, I can't do what's right for me and my body and my mind or my family at this moment, because, you know, there's still, you know, this problem that is not completely resolved. So thank you for that. Thank you for the work that you're doing. This has been quite a meaningful conversation, and I hope one that serves as a springboard for people to take action to address some of the trauma that undergirds this cycle of violence that we all become a part of. Even if it hasn't hit close to home, knowing that these things are happening can have a detrimental effect on all of our mental health. So it's so important that we use any number of techniques at our disposal to, you know, whether that's revisiting troubling events that we've experienced that can take over our subconscious minds and affect our interpersonal relationships, how we live our lives. Get the help that you need. And again, I'm just so grateful to all of you, Jamie, Brunson, Yolanda, Rosalyn, Pichardo. Thank you for what you're doing. Family, Her Health Matters family, please reach out to these organizations to join forces to stop the cycle of violence in our city and beyond. Thank you so very much for coming on the show. We are going to move into our policy and women segment. The 19th Amendment has and continues to have a major impact on women's health care in the United States. Prior to being able to vote on issues that impact us, we really didn't have a voice. That's the reason why on Her Health Matters radio show, we highlight policy issues that impact women's health and wellness in our policy and women segment. It's important for us to stay engaged, educated, and activate our communities when necessary, and of course, to vote. On that note, I want to let you know that on September 17th, which was National Voter Registration Day, Governor Josh Shapiro announced a change to the driver's license renewal process that will automatically register people to vote unless they opt out. This will definitely increase the number of community members registered to vote and increase voter participation, by and large, strengthens our democracy. And we are winding down the show with our final segment, Making Moves, where we share information about health and wellness events in our area. And on Thursday, October 12th, You can attend a film screening and discussion on Trigger at the State Museum of Pennsylvania, being hosted by the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. It's at the State Museum of Pennsylvania, located at 300 North Street in Harrisburg. So Jamie J gave us a date that is in the Philadelphia area on October 2nd, and you can also catch it on October 12th in the Harrisburg area. On Friday, October 20th, Community Hero is hosting a health resource clinic at the Carver Center, located at 249 East Jacoby Street in Norristown, Pennsylvania. There will be community health resources, a special visit from Doc McStuffins, and cold and flu vaccines administered by Giant Pharmacy. The YWCA in Pottstown is hosting its annual Week Without Violence block event on Saturday, October 21st, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's located at 315 King Street in Pottstown. There'll be music, food, and fun, and it's free to the public. Again, that's October 21st at the YWCA Pottstown. On Saturday, October 28th, Community Hero is coming out to support the Hug the Block initiative, which is run by an organization called Philly Truce. You may have seen them highlighted on the news over the past few months. This initiative promotes community safety through volunteer-run neighborhood patrols. Everyday people are reclaiming the streets by simply being present. It's unbelievable how showing up can change the energy of a block. The goal of this program is to decrease community-level violence by empowering community members to engage in cooperative conversations with their neighbors while on regular patrols during peak times for violence overnight. Their goal is to be on the streets every day from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. until Election Day to bring safety and awareness about how powerful community activation can be, in particular leading up to Election Day this year. Community Hero is supporting this event, this important initiative. It's more than an event since it runs a span of time, by providing volunteers on one of those days, which is Saturday, October 28th. Even if you can come out for an hour, any help is greatly appreciated. So please, especially want to get our significant others, husbands, brothers, those leaders in the community that might have missed this program to get out there. And we'll be at 5030, that's 5030 Germantown Avenue. For more information, please message us on Facebook at Community Hero PA or email us at contactus@communityheropa.org. Again, message us on Facebook at Community Hero PA or email us at contactus@communityheropa.org. Training and vests are provided and you will not be alone. Please volunteer for this important initiative. The Black Girl Health Con 2023 is November 3rd. It's being hosted at the Chase Center on the riverfront, located at 815 Justison Street in Wilmington, Delaware. The event is being dubbed as a place to radically reimagine community health and fellowship. Black Girl Health Con creates a space where community members, expert facilitators, and providers can meet and fellowship to be educated in prevention, self-advocacy, programs, and innovative and inclusive trauma-informed care. Go to blackgirlhealthcollective.org to get your ticket. Tickets are $30. The producer of this show is Community Hero Action Group, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to closing gaps in health and wealth disparities in the Black community. If you want to get involved with the work that Community Hero Action Group does, such as this radio show or many other health-related initiatives, please visit the website at communityheropa.org or email us again at contactus@communityheropa.org. It takes all of us to get the work done. I'd like to send a special thank you to the executive producer of Her Health Matters, Nicole Keels-McGruder, the founder and chief operating officer of Community Hero Action Group. And of course, thanks to WURD's technical producer, Ms. Rhonda Gibson, family, it's time for Her Health Matters to go. But if you know anyone who needs emotional support, the City of Philadelphia's Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services has many resources. You can pull it up online. And of course, just as a reminder, the 988 Lifeline is free, it's confidential, it's nationwide. Compassionate, trained professionals answer all calls or texts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Callers will receive counseling, guidance, assessment, referrals, and warm transfers to other services as indicated. Thanks again to our guests, Yolanda Hughes, the Director of Network of Neighbors, Rosalyn Pichardo, Jamie Brunson, and of course to you, our loyal listeners. Meet us back here on the fourth Sunday of next month, October 22nd at 2 p.m., and we'll be back with another great episode. I'm your host, Dr. Sofia Shabazz, signing off. Until next time, be healthy, be you, because your health matters. Hey, lady, yeah.